The rain battered Marcus Tate's worn-out sneakers as he stood in the checkout line at Harper's Grocery, clutching a loaf of bread and a jar of peanut butter. His stomach growled, a quiet reminder that he hadn't eaten since yesterday's half-eaten granola bar. At 38, Marcus was a man stretched thin, by life, by loss, by the weight of being a single dad to his 10-year-old daughter, Lily. The fluorescent lights buzzed above, casting a harsh glow on his tired face, etched with lines of worry that seemed to deepen with every passing day. Next, the cashier called, her voice flat. Marcus stepped forward, placing his items on the counter. Behind him, a young woman in a soaked hoodie fumbled with her wallet, her voice trembling as she spoke to the cashier. "Please, try it again. It should work." Marcus glanced back. The woman's cart held a small pack of diapers, a box of cereal, and a single apple. Her face was flushed with embarrassment as the cashier swiped her card once more. "Declined." The word flashed on the screen like a neon sign. The woman's eyes welled up, and she whispered, I don't have cash." The line behind them grew restless. A man in a suit muttered something about holding everyone up. Marcus felt a pang in his chest. He knew that look, the quiet panic of coming up short, of feeling the world's eyes on you when you're at your lowest. He'd been there too many times, counting pennies for Lily's school lunch or skipping bills to keep the lights on. He reached into his pocket, his fingers brushing against the crumpled dollar bills he'd scraped together for their dinner. $9. Enough for the bread and peanut butter, maybe a carton of milk if he was lucky. But as he looked at the woman, her head bowed, clutching the diapers like they were her lifeline, something stirred inside him. A memory of his late wife, Sarah, who'd always said, "Kindness costs less than you think, but it's worth more than you know." "Hold on," Marcus said, his voice steady despite the knot in his throat. He turned to the cashier. "Add her stuff to my bill." The woman's head snapped up, eyes wide. "No, you don't have to. It's okay," Marcus said, offering a small smile. "I got you." The cashier raised an eyebrow but scanned the items. Marcus handed over his $9, watching as the total climbed. $8.47. He let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. The woman's hand shook as she gathered her groceries, her voice barely above a whisper. "Thank you. I don't even know your name." "Marcus," he said simply. "Take care." She nodded, tears spilling over, and hurried out into the rain. Marcus took his bread and peanut butter, the weight of his empty wallet heavier than ever. As he stepped into the storm, he wondered how he'd explain to Lily why dinner would be even leaner tonight. The next morning, Marcus woke to the familiar ache of hunger and the softer ache of hope deferred. His job as a part-time janitor at the community center barely covered rent, and the bills were piling up like unopened letters from a life he couldn't afford. Lily sat at their small kitchen table, her crayons scattered across a math worksheet. "Dad, can we get pizza tonight?" she asked, her brown eyes bright with innocence. Marcus forced a smile. "Maybe this weekend, kiddo. PB&J for now, okay?" She nodded, but he saw the flicker of disappointment. It cut deeper than any missed meal. He wanted more for her, a better home, a future where she didn't have to ration her dreams. But wanting wasn't enough, and the weight of that truth pressed against his chest. As he walked to work, the rain had stopped, leaving the streets slick and shimmering. He passed Harper's Grocery, the memory of last night tugging at him. He didn't regret helping the woman, but the cost lingered. $9 wasn't just money, it was a choice, a sacrifice, a moment of humanity in a world that often felt cold. At the community center, Marcus was mopping the gym floor when a man in a crisp blazer approached. "You Marcus Tate?" he asked, his voice carrying a hint of urgency. Marcus straightened, wiping his hands on his jeans. "Yeah, that's me." The man extended a hand. "James Carver. I was at Harper's last night. Saw what you did for that young lady." Marcus shifted, uneasy under the man's gaze. "It was nothing. Just helping out." James shook his head, a faint smile breaking through. "It wasn't nothing. That woman was my niece, Kayla. She's been struggling since her husband left. Those diapers were for her baby. You didn't just pay for her groceries. You gave her a moment to breathe, to feel seen." Marcus rubbed the back of his neck, unsure what for sure to say. "I've been where she is. I get it." James studied him for a moment, then reached into his pocket and pulled out a business card. "I run a construction company downtown. We're looking for good people, hard workers with heart. I've got a feeling you're one of them. Full-time, benefits, a chance to grow. You interested?" Marcus stared at the card, the words blurring as his pulse quickened. A job. A real job. Not just scraping by, but a chance to build something for Lily, for himself. He swallowed hard, the weight of the moment sinking in. Yeah, I'm interested. James clapped him on the shoulder. Good. Come by tomorrow. We'll talk details. As James walked away, Marcus stood frozen, the mop still in his hand. The gym seemed to hum with possibility, the air charged with something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. He thought of Sarah, of her belief that kindness always came back, like a seed planted in barren soil. He'd given $9, expecting nothing. But in that act, he'd unknowingly opened a door to a future he'd almost stopped believing in. That evening, Marcus sat with Lily at their kitchen table, the bread and peanut butter between them. He told her about the job offer, his voice thick with emotion. Her face lit up, and she threw her arms around him, her laughter filling the cramped apartment like music. Does this mean we can get pizza? She asked, grinning. Marcus laughed, the sound raw and full of life. Yeah, kiddo. Pizza and maybe a whole lot more. As they ate, Marcus glanced at the business card on the counter, its edges worn from his nervous fingers. He thought of Kayla, the stranger whose struggle had mirrored his own. He thought of the rain, the grocery line, the moment he'd chosen to give what little he had. It wasn't just $9. It was a bridge, a connection, a reminder that even in the darkest moments, humanity could shine through. The world was still hard, still heavy with challenges. But as Marcus looked at Lily, her crayon sketching a future brighter than he'd dared imagine, he felt a warmth settle in his chest. Kindness, he realized, wasn't just a gift to others. It was a spark, a ripple, a way to change the world, one small act at a time. And in that moment, Marcus knew, no matter how little you have, there's always enough to share. Because when you give from the heart, life has a way of giving back, bigger, bolder, and more beautiful than you ever dreamed.